I only wanted Rudolph to have more than I ever did. You gotta understand, I was a nothing, a no deer. I was never gonna pull Santa's sleigh. I've got a bad back, I'm not a strong flyer, and I smoke. I was an unemployed herd deer. And in fact, I've been fired from my last job because, well, once word gets around that you can't handle herd work, then you're pretty much through. So the vet comes to me. And he tells me that my son Rudolph is going to be born the way that he was. He'd never walk without the aid of crutches. He's so horribly disfigured and have a face that no doe could ever love. And then he'd have a mind of a small child all his life. And then he tells me that my mate and I shouldn't even have any more kids because they'll all be born like he was. Corey was terribly upset. That was it for me. It was the end of my life. You see, every parent has a dream for their child. Dreams that'll never happen. Like your son will grow up to be President of the United States of America. Or your daughter will grow up to be, well, the president's wife. Strange, crazy, outlandish dreams. And sometimes when your life is like where mine was, the only hope that you ever had is that your kids will be better off than you are. It's that crazy optimism that keeps you going from day to day and gets you through the tough times when it's a struggle to put feed on the table. And although you'll know you'll never amount to anything, it's that hope and dream that your kids will have that world of opportunity laid out before them. And life's worth living at one more day to see what they'll do with it. But Rudolph, he didn't have any of those possibilities. From the moment of his birth, there was no open country stretched out alive with promise before him, only closed doors. You gotta understand, our entire culture is based on natural athleticism. A deer who can't run, or jump, or dance, or pull a sleigh, or just stand there and look sexy in leather and sleigh bells is better off dead. And if Rudolph were a domestic deer, they would have taken him out back and shot him to put him out of his misery. The only future that kid ever had was to be a burden to his parents, who were already overburdened as it was. So when Santa came to me and told me that he was going to have Rudolph lead the team, you bet I jumped at it. You got to understand what it's like. I mean, the British, they had the Queen, and the Beatles. The Americans, they got the Beatles. And the reindeer have the 8. I remember one time before I joined the team when Victor was making an appearance at a benefit. He was signing autographs and got mine. And he misspelled my name. It's okay though, because for years that was my most prized possession. But when he died, I sold it on eBay. I got enough money to pay 2 months back rent. Whoever's got it now has got one hell of a collector's item. But it's not just to fly with the 8, it's to lead the team. Something that Dasher's only ever done. Dasher, who's like a superhero to most reindeer. Dasher, who flew headfirst into the Empire State Building, fell out of his harness and fell 60 floors, only to get back up and lead that team to the fastest Christmas on record. Dasher and Rudolph. I'm not trying to make excuses. But when Rudolph came to me and told me how Santa Claus was talking to him and how he was walking him home from school and giving him gifts, I knew what was going on. And when he stopped talking about Santa Claus and only cried, I knew what had happened. But you never want to think that something like that actually happens to your family until it actually does. And eventually, after Santa Claus lost interest in him, and He stopped crying. He didn't cry from that anymore. Those were the good years. But when Santa Claus came into my home, the most powerful man in the world came into my house and asked for my son. What was I supposed to do? I did the one thing that no one else has ever done. Many have done it since, and they'll brag about it the rest of their frickin' lives, but until that day, no one, no deer, no elf, no one ever said no to Santa Claus. I said no to Santa Claus. Then he offered me money. He was shocked, and my dough fainted, and he offered me gifts and reindeer things. I said no. Then he told me that he had a spot on the team for me. That my family would never want for food, clothing, or shelter ever again. That I, Donner, an unemployed herd deer from Fairbanks, would be one of the Comets, the Victors, the Dashers. I said no. Then he told me he's got a spot on the team for Rudolph. Rudolph, who wasn't going to amount to anything. He couldn't even be the miserable failure that his own father was. That he was going to do something that most reindeer can't even dream of. That for once in his life, he would not ever have to want for love or affection. That he would have power and prestige. And people would sing songs about him being Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. Something to be so proud of. Yes, I said yes! And I listened to the screams from the next room. And I listened to those tears for years to come. But he never again wanted from hunger or loneliness or humiliation. He only cried from fear and pain. And everyone wants to know how Don can still work for Santa Claus after what he's done to his family and so many others. Well, the others, they're on their own. You see, I made him pay. I make him pay me, I made him pay Rudolph, I make him pay every time somebody else says no. You gotta understand. I've already paid with my son, with my mate who's left me, with my pride and dignity and self-respect. When I thought it was all over, again I'm paying with my son. My son who sits in a corner and stares. Sits and stares and sings Christmas carols. And doesn't answer me when I talk to him. My son who sits and stares and I can't ask him what's wrong because he can't hear me. And I don't know why. I don't know why.